Thanks, Sam. And thanks to all of you for tuning in. You know, from the start, when you become an employee of a financial institution or a director of a financial institution, you become indoctrinated in the importance of keeping matters confidential. I was speaking in Chicago last week, and part of the audience consisted of individuals with adult protective services, and I was explaining to them that banks rely upon a foundation of trust that they create with their customer as if it is a contract, and actually it is a contract, but unspoken is the notion that the information a customer gives to the bank is going to remain private and confidential. And that's why when we have like an elder financial abuse situation, there need to be laws that permit financial institutions to notify folks like adult protective services, because bankers can't go around just telling their customers business. You aren't going to sit in your local Kiwanis meeting and point at someone across the room and say, see that guy over there who looks like a hayseed? He's got over $2 million on deposit in our bank. Obviously, confidentiality is something that you know a lot about. But the focus of this webinar is not on confidentiality per se, but it's on next level information. It's about information that is so confidential in its nature, that is so sensitive, that there are specific laws in place that say that if this kind of information is disclosed in the wrong way to the wrong people, that the person who makes the disclosure can find themselves in the crosshairs of prosecutors and can find themselves facing criminal charges that are serious indeed. That's what this webinar is about, keeping bank secrets, the things that you can go to jail for telling. So the webinar is split in half, and the first part of the program is for all bank personnel to listen to, and it's going to focus on financial privacy and what the specific laws are that say you can't disclose particular kinds of information. And then we'll move to the second half of the program. And the second half of the program is designed for the person or persons within the financial institution who have to come up with the policies and procedures for confidentiality and who do internal training on the subject. So we aren't going to be going through every financial privacy law by any means, but we're going to be talking about the instances where statutes impose potential criminal penalties for disclosing information in order to help you protect yourself from that. You know, sometimes we don't know the rules of the game, and so you do something that you don't realize is going to be a problem. And when there are potential criminal penalties involved, that is a terrible tragedy when that happens. So we're going to open your eyes so you know exactly what's allowed, what is not allowed. So let's start here with the big picture. And let me tell you how this webinar came about. I saw a little item in a newspaper one day about a banker who had been convicted of obstruction of justice for telling a customer that the bank had received a federal grand jury subpoena for the customer's records. I dug as deep as I could possibly dig because I thought, how could this happen? What are the circumstances? Why would the banker tell this customer? And so here's what I found. Philip Grace was a banker down in, I believe, Jasper, Alabama. He had been in banking for a number of years. He was a CPA and a banker. He had won Young Banker of the Year at one point of the career. Everybody loved Philip. One day when Philip was walking into the bank, somebody in the bookkeeping department hollered out at him and said, "Hey, Philip, we got a subpoena on one of your customers." "Really? Who is it?" And they told the customer's name, and he said, "Well, I wonder what's going on." "I don't know," said the person in bookkeeping, and handed him a copy of the subpoena, which happened to be a federal grand jury subpoena. Now, it asked for records of the individual and also of their businesses. And collectively, the guy and his business at that point in time owed the bank about $3 million. So this subpoena was a little worrisome. So Philip went to the president of the bank and he said, "Hey, we just got a subpoena for the records of so-and-so customer and his business. Do you think maybe I should contact him and try to find out what's going on?" And the president said, "Well, that's probably a good idea," because they're thinking, wow, don't want something to be going on that could result in liability of the customer that could impact his ability to repay his loans. So Philip Grace called the customer, and he said, "Hey, I'm just calling because we just got, what is this, a federal grand jury subpoena on you, and it's asking for all of your bank records and the records of your business for this period of time. And we just kind of wondered, is everything okay?" The customer says, "Oh, yeah, nothing to worry about, nothing to worry about." Philip is relieved, and he says, "Well, that's great, and hope to see you soon." He gets off the phone. The customer, who had played cool as a cucumber on the phone, was drenched in sweat. He had no idea that he was under investigation or that his records were being sought until Philip called him. And so he did a little investigating of his own, and he decided, if it was a federal grand jury subpoena, maybe it was the FBI who was looking at him, and sure enough, it was. The grand jury had been convened to look into allegations of corruption in the secondary school system and with software contracts and so forth. So the customer calls the FBI and says, "Hey, this is so-and-so. I understand you're looking into me and my finances." Well, the FBI couldn't believe it. How did this guy know this? Where was there a leak? Grand jury proceedings are extremely confidential. So they point blank asked him, "How did you find out?" "My banker told me. He says he got a federal grand jury subpoena for my bank records." "Who's your banker?" "His name's Philip Grace." At that moment in time, the crosshairs of the prosecutors moved. The FBI went to the prosecutors and said, "We have a big problem here. We've got some cowboy banker who's